Greetings, nerds! Much like a predator, or as they are commonly known within the deep lore, the Yuatja, I have been stalking the ultimate prey, using only my cunning and vast armory of advanced weaponry to aid me. What is that prey, you ask? Views from you guys. That's right, we're riding the prey hype train, baby. But really, we wanted to just kind of break up the monotony of the channel and add something a bit new for you guys. But first, we wanted to thank the sponsor of today's video, Displate. Displate is all about collecting and presenting your passions. Displate offers both branded and independent artistic designs printed on a metal for a really sleek looking piece of modern art. Displate is a great alternative to paper posters or artwork, and it's strong and durable, and they're partnered with licensed brands like Marvel, DC, and Star Wars. They include a super simple magnetic mounting system. I hung this Displate above my son Miles' bed in maybe a minute, which means you can move these around super easily. With over 1 million options to choose from, there is something for everybody no matter your fandom. Follow the link in the description now to check out my profile as well as receive a discount for our subscribers. You'll receive 25% off your first 2 Displates or 29% off 3 or more. Thanks again to Displate, and now back to the video. Actually, I was in my local comic store the other day and I happened to pick up a copy of the new Predator series from Marvel Comics, which aims to establish new lore for the Predator species because, well, Disney owns it now, and that's what they do. Anyway, over the years, my comic collection has seen more than its fair share of Predator comics make their way into, and then a lot of times quickly out of, my short boxes. And I think at this point, we pretty much know exactly what the Predator species is about. The Predator is all about hunting the most dangerous game it can, taking the biggest prize and proving it's the biggest badass in the galaxy. And comic books have some pretty big badasses in them themselves. So today I wanted to highlight a few of the more ridiculous Predator crossover comics I've read over the years, what they are about briefly, and whether or not you should find them and check them out, or run and jump into the mud to hide yourself from their existence. So without further ado, these are the weirdest Predator crossover comics that you can find. We're going to start on a high note, and we're going to take 2 of the most popular fictional characters ever created, Batman vs. Predator. And this was the comic that dropped in 1991 that you didn't even know you wanted until DC and Dark Horse blessed you with its awesomeness. Written by David Gibbons and drawn by Andy and Adam Kubert, sons of the monumentally famous comic artist Joe Kubert, this book has everything you never knew you needed until right now. Much like Predator 2, this book centers around warring factions of the mob. 2 mobsters have a boxing match, and afterwards, a predator ends up hunting and killing one of them. Batman begins investigating the gruesome death as the boxer had his skull and spine ripped out as is par for the course. Batman's goal here is to prevent an all-out war in Gotham between mobsters, but he quickly realizes that there is more here than just warring gangsters. Batman tracks the extraterrestrial predator down to a scrapyard and gets his ass beat, boy. I mean, the Predator jacks the Caped Crusader up. He says, "I did not fly across the galaxy to lose to a man in pajamas. I'm sorry." In fact, Batman is beaten so badly he can barely walk. The Predator continues hunting the most dangerous people in Gotham while Batman attempts to recover. Batman ends up being forced by the Predator to don a new suit of Batman battle armor in an attempt to offset his injuries. The 2 battle for a second time, and it doesn't take an insufferable Batman fan like Garrick to tell you who wins the rematch. This is a must-read for any Predator or Batman fan. The artwork is top-notch, and the story is really fun. Archie vs. Predator is a mashup that frankly should not exist, and it has no right being as good as it actually is. I actually bought this comic book the day it came out. I had absolutely no idea that it was coming out, so when I saw it was something that existed, I was unable to prevent myself from stopping myself from buying it. I had zero control over my body. Written by Alex de Campi and drawn by Fernando Ruiz, it's actually one of the better crossovers Predator has ever been in, and the premise is pretty simple. The Riverdale gang goes on vacation, and along the way they end up attracting the attention of a predator, who has arrived in a nearby jungle to do what they do best. Betty and Veronica end up convinced the Predator's hunting them as part of some ancient curse attached to a dagger that Betty finds in a cave while on vacation. And the crew ends up heading back to Riverdale, and the Predator follows them, and it's actually a super gory adventure for an Archie comic. How gory, do you ask? Well, Jughead gets his spine ripped out, and Archie takes a serum that lets him get all juiced up to the gills like a proper 80s action hero to face off against the Silent Stalker, and this is something that you have to see to believe. Without giving too much away, the Predator does a lot of damage to the Riverdale crew, and it is shockingly violent, but in the end, it is very silly and very worth it. There is even a sequel comic that, in my opinion, is actually better than the original, and it builds upon the first. So check this out. Even if you're not a fan of traditional Archie comics, it is deceptively fun. Superman versus Predator is an insane concept, considering the fact that Superman can literally punch holes through the fabric of reality, so the premise alone is going to require you to create a reason why Superman isn't as strong as he normally would be because he would just one-shot the Predator. Fortunately, to tackle this task, we have David Michelin and Alex Maleev bringing us Superman vs. Predator. David co-created Carnage, Venom, and a number of other popular characters, so you know he has experience writing insanely aggressive alien monsters. Supes vs. Predator sets the stage by having Star Labs scientists in a remote jungle find a long-forgotten Predator ship. Superman arrives to aid the research team and decides to pull the door off the side of the ship, which blasts him in the face with a hot dose of Predator virus. I don't know why I phrased it that way. This virus forces Superman's powers to fluctuate drastically. He's still mega strong, can fly, and is bulletproof, but everything else has been toned down significantly, and this provides the Predator with the only shot in hell it would have to take down Big Blue. But instead of that being the premise, the majority of the plot of the book is actually about a rogue scientist named Solomon Ward trying to unleash a bioplague on humanity designed to kill everybody who has a genetic disability. Real like Nazi-level eugenics crap. Predator is more of a background character in this story until the third and final issue that sees a bit more action, but for a book called Superman vs. Predator, they don't really come to blows that much until the end, and even that fight seems a bit anticlimactic. I would have liked to see a little bit less narrative about eugenics and politics and a bit more space murder. The action is also pretty much PG to PG-13, so nothing really gory happens. The artwork, however, is beautiful, and the story itself is a notch above most of the other entries we're going to discuss from this point on. Honestly, this is probably a skip for most people. I don't really think the premise pays off here for this specific book, but it's far from the worst mashup the DC characters have with the Predator. Now, if you want a comic to read that is just absolutely balls to the wall insane, Predator vs. Judge Dredd from 1997 is what you want. A predator touches down in Mega City 1 and starts hunting the most dangerous game in the city, street judges. This book is really cool because technically the world of Judge Dredd is the same as the regular world, just in the future. Judge Dredd is assisted by a PSYOPs agent who also happens to be the great-great-granddaughter of Dutch Schaefer, Arnold's character from the original Predator. Judge Dredd has to clash with this ultimate hunter. The interesting part here is that the Judge Dredd universe is full of advanced weaponry, so it's pretty cool to see the Predator face off against a target with her own set of unique toys like the Lawgiver. The Lawgiver is an insanely powerful gun that has basically every type of ammo you could ever want inside of it. There are also advanced warbots, which made their big screen debut in the 90s Judge Dredd movie, and the other key thing here is that Judge Dredd is like the exact right type of protagonist for this genre. He's a big, gruff, tough guy who wants to fight. Dredd is used to fighting mutants and superpowered psychos, and the Predator just fits right into that mold. This is really basically every 16-year-old kid's dream Predator comic. It's not telling a complex story either, it's just alien lands, alien hunts, Dredd gets pissed, they throw down. The climax sees a shirtless Dredd knife fighting a Predator inside of a circle of fire. It's that kind of thing that as a child I would 100% be imitating with stuffed animals wearing a headband and my pajamas in my living room. If I was going to give this comic book a score, I would give it a 4 billion out of 10. Oh, but from the highest highs to the lowest lows, we shall plummet. Remember how I mentioned that DC comic crossovers with Predators were not good? Well, in 2001, John Ostrander and Graham Nolan brought us a true piece of crap, the Justice League of America vs. Predator. This book was one that I was interested in checking out until about 20 pages in when I realized I had seen everything that it was going to offer and what it offered sucked. I have a really difficult time enjoying comic books if the artwork isn't up to par, and this is a weird type of early 2000s artwork where everybody looks like a balloon animal. The original Batman vs. Predator, and even to some extent Superman vs. Predator, both work well because the concept largely remains intact. At the core, those books are still about a hunter hunting big game, but this book tries to turn the predator species into something that just does not work. The premise here is that the insanely advanced DC Comics alien species known as the Dominators capture a few predators and modify their DNA to be similar to the Justice League. This would again be the only way that the Predators could possibly compete against the absolutely cracked JLA, but the execution sucks. It seems like it could work and could be cool, but it ends up being a bit too cartoony and campy for me. The allure of the Predator as a species is rooted in cat and mouse stealth and extreme gore, and if you dissect it a bit, it took the concept of the 80s action hero who blasts his way out of every single problem and says, that's not going to work here. You're outgunned and you can't even see your target. The reason the original Predator was so beloved is because Arnold has to abandon the guns and ammo and fight the Predator on a more primal level. This abandons all of that and seems more like the plot is a really bad Bruce Timm Saturday morning cartoon. It also doesn't help that the JLA completely washes the Predators at the end, who are all just shittier clones of the JLA. I would not recommend this comic to anybody. Up next we have Superman and Batman vs. Aliens and Predator, which I was expecting to hate. But it is a significantly more interesting book, and outside of Batman v Predator, it's probably my favorite of the crossovers between DC and Predator. This book solves the Superman is way too strong and smart to face a Predator with any sort of tension problem. And it does it by making him the big blue Boy Scout that he is. Superman ends up viewing the aliens and predators like he views himself, a misunderstood extraterrestrial that has a right to live even if they don't necessarily fit well within the confines of Earth. The book also puts Batman into a really unique situation with the predators, which I'll discuss in a second. The book centers around an underground hive of predators on Earth who crash-landed here 14,000 years ago. The predators are about to be obliterated by an active volcano, which is near where their underground colony is, and they decide to start to venture out into Earth to vibe and probably check out MCU movies or something. Batman is able to infiltrate this predator tribe because, of course he can, and he convinces them that Superman is the sun god that they worship. From there, Superman and Batman work together to essentially round up the predators and aliens and remove them from Earth without killing them. Superman actually brings the Fortress of Solitude, which looks like a solid black Death Star, to the volcano and puts all of the aliens, predators, and their ship into the fortress and releases them back into the galaxy like, I don't know, a kid saving a grasshopper it saved in a jar or something like that. I really ended up enjoying this book. The artwork was cool, and I think it did a really good job of showcasing classic Superman and Batman teamwork, and I think just about everything had the right amount of focus as well. It is not a gory book or a particularly good Predator story, but it is a good examination of what makes Superman great. There are a few Predator and alien kills, but it's at best PG-13 levels of violence. The last book I'm going to discuss today is Aliens vs. Predator vs. Terminator, and this is a book that basically broke me. Reading it was not an enjoyable experience at all, and I can confidently say that if you're looking for the worst Predator crossover comic, this is probably it. This should have been a slam dunk, but it highlights the difficulty in putting together iconic movie villains into a story that feels in any way plausible. This comic centers around Ripley number 8, a clone of the original Ripley, and a mostly human cast of other Alien franchise characters. The artwork is that weird style of 90s extreme art that makes everybody look shredded to the max. Women are thin and dainty, and every man in the book happens to bench 600 pounds and squats a 1999 Toyota Paseo. We learn that Skynet has lost the war in the distant future, and instead of trying to go back and kill John Connor for the 40th time, they instead decide to send Terminators into the future, called Crypto Terminators. No, wait. It's not that type of crypto. Nobody's going to talk to you about NFTs or blockchains. This is just a weird terminology they use. The Crypto Terminator's goal is to gain even more badass technology and DNA enhancements so they can rule the future. That concept itself is fairly cool, but the problem is the execution could not be more bland. This book is extremely Ripley and the Gang heavy, and it nearly neglects Skynet, Predator, and the aliens the entire time. It's just an example of someone biting off more than they can chew. And outside of the aliens' human crew and the crypto Terminators, nothing else was really utilized well at all. Honestly, don't read this. I wouldn't read it. And that is about it for this weird video I made about cool Predator crossover comics that I've recently read. If you are anything like us and Prey has got you more interested in checking out some weird, obscure Predator stuff that's out there, then give some of these books I recommended a shot. I think you'll really enjoy them. This has been Nick with Key Issues. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out these comics and remember the motto, Predator over everything.